I'd like to call the February 7th, 2023 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the code of ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on all matters voted on by the Board of Commissioners at our meeting this evening. I also wanted to announce that any members of the public who are attending our meeting this evening who parked in the county's parking garage or who utilize public transit to attend the meeting can get validation for that by from one of the officers on duty this evening. You can see them on your way out for validation of your parking or transit pass. All right, we come to the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Do any members of the public have any questions about any items on our consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of our agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we come to the public comment. And we have a sign-up sheet of folks who indicated they wish to speak during public comment. I'm going to just go through the list of folks who signed up. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. And once we get through the list of folks that signed up, if anybody else wishes to address the board during public comment, you'll have an opportunity to do that. And all folks will have 3 minutes to address the board. You'll get an orange light when you've got about 30 seconds left and a red light when your 3 minutes is up. And we do ask that you discontinue your public comments after your time's up because we want to give all members of the public the same amount of time to address the board. The first person that signed up is Allison Suri from Clearbrook King in Asheville. Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Allison Suri, and I've lived on Pinners Cove Road since 1997. All of the property on Pinners Cove Road is currently zoned low density, allowing 2 units per acre or less, depending on the steep slope conditions. In this context, I'm here to ask you to take 2 actions tonight. Action 1, reject the appointment of North American Land Trust as the holder of conservation easement in Pinners Cove. You have heard countless concerns over the past year from my neighbors about this inappropriate high-density development using a conservation easement to avoid the current zoning for this farmland. With a sewage pumping system running through the middle of the portion of this land, there is no true conservation or recreation benefit. It appears the county is willing to sacrifice land throughout Buncombe County for increased tax revenue once the land is developed. I understand that farmland pays a lower property tax rate, but that does not mean we should pave over what brings people to live here in the first place. When the North American Land Trust fails in its obligations, Buncombe County will be forced to use part of the $30 million conservation bond money when the first right of refusal is exercised. This money is better used for truly conserved land. Action 2. Reject the 2043 plan that classifies the western side of Pinners Cove Road as a complete community. There is no difference between the conditions of adjoining property of Merrill's Cove and Bob Barnwell Roads, which are classified rural. You must keep Pinners Cove classified rural. In summary, all of the property on Pinners Cove Road is currently zoned low density and should remain that way. Buncombe County voters are counting on you to have the wisdom and integrity to do the right thing for its citizens. Thank you.
The next person that signed up is Scott Coolman.
Good evening. I'd like to give an update on KLP Pinner's Eat plans for conservation easements in their proposed major subdivision. They're applying for these easements in order to obtain density bonus. The reason there are 2 easements in this is to facilitate a sewer system, including pumping stations and lines bisecting them that will pump raw sewage up and over Busby Mountain to attach to the MSD in the Ballantree subdivision. On January 23, I attended the planning board meeting. During the planning board meeting, during the public comment period, a representative from KLP Pinners Eat announced that they had submitted a new plan for a conservation easement. Later that day, I emailed the planning department staff member requesting a copy of the reapplication and the site plan. The next day, while I was attending the self-guided tour for the comprehensive plan at the Leicester Library, I asked the same staff member if they had received my request and was told yes, that they had received the request, but I would not be provided a response from that request, that I had to apply through the public records request portal. But it was also mentioned that other people in the community could request it directly from the staff member. Something has changed in the procedure. During the past year, I've emailed this staff member of the planning department 17 times and have received an answer every time between the same day and 9 days later. In the past year, the website has been updated with reapplications and new information, but I was told that day that there would not be any more updates provided to the public. On February 1st, I received the documents that I had requested, and on the new site plan, it shows that the conservation easement's layout have changed, and one of the easements looks like an octopus with tentacles reaching with the width of, I would assume, up 50 feet. A 50-foot wide conservation easement, I think, it does not fit the true nature of an easement. I ask you again to reject this, to instruct the legal department to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Coolman.
My name is Chloette Kuhlman. Good try, though. I am also a resident of Pinners Cove Road. Why do Pinners Cove residents continue to show up and beg for your help? It's because something is very wrong. We need help from our elected representatives to get to the bottom of this problem. 1 year ago, the Buncombe County Planning Board met to make their recommendation on the question of rezoning a piece of property on Pinners Cove Road from residential low density to R2. Attended by over 150 Pinners Cove residents, they listened to community concerns, and each board member shared their own research and observations. They voted 7-1 not to recommend a change from low-density zoning. These board members overwhelmingly agreed such a level of development in Pinners Cove would be wrong. Even more wrong was that following the planning board meeting and vote, the Buncombe County Planning and Development Department appeared to work on a plan to help the developer circumvent the planning board recommendation and the will of the people. A plan was filed for the current development as a major subdivision, which takes all public input out of the process. This enables the planning department to have all control. In addition, the developer was advised about a conservation easement to bump the density higher and this gives the county attorney final authority of that approval. I call foul. Common sense would dictate that this is just wrong. I'm here to ask that you protect the Pinners Cove zoning. I can't believe that the major subdivision status was ever meant for use in a residential low-density zoned area. And I ask that each one of you, please research and respond to that question. The current Buncombe County Land Use Plan prioritizes the preservation of rural and agricultural land. The developing 2043 plan lists the same priorities. Up to 80% of the public participants identify the loss of natural areas and agricultural lands to new development as one of their biggest concerns for the future of our county. We all say that we have these same priorities, but sadly, we have procedures in place to allow for just the opposite effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee Stiles?
As you may know, I was on the steering committee for the comprehensive plan that's been going on for almost 2 years now. The first thing I'd like to say is I would like to really commend the staff of the planning department for all the extra work and all the energy they put in to meeting with the steering committee, but also meeting with the public in various locations to make sure that everybody in the county had the opportunity to have an input if they wanted to do that. And the second thing I'd like to say is now that the draft plan has been developed, and pretty soon it will be your opportunity to decide if you want to make changes to that or and to be ready to approve it, because that will be the job of the commissioners to adopt that plan. I would like to say that after the people from the planning board and the consultants and the steering committee have put in all that work, there's still things that even I, from being on the steering committee, would like to see changed. But to take the time, and here's a copy of what it looks like, and it's not as bad as it looks because there's a lot of pictures, so it's not too bad to read it all. But please, I know you're busy, but please take the time to read every bit of it and consider what it means to the people and listen to the people's input about if they have an input about how it would affect their neighborhood and the county and the clean water and the steep slopes. So please take the time to read the whole thing and consider all the options. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dee Dee. All right, next is Jonathan Wainscott. We are, and if you'd like to comment on it, you can do so now. Yeah, this is public comment on any items. Yep.
My name's Jonathan Wayne Scott. I'm more accustomed to city council. This is the first time I've addressed the commissioners about this. So in regards to the resolution for the reparations audit, I just wanted to put out there that I've been doing a lot of research about the history of Asheville. I know this is not necessarily in the purview of the Buncombe County Commissioners, but just how our election system, our governmental system that we currently use today was established back in 1931 in the case of the city of Asheville. And a couple weeks ago, I was telling city council that I discovered that over the course of 91 years of the existence of Asheville City Council, there's only been 8.6% African-American representation in the entire history of council. That includes, the last couple of years where we've had 3 African-American members on council and the first 3+ decades where we had none. And then since then, I further kind of crunched the numbers, and if you look at it, 8.6% of a 7-ish body council, there were 9 members of council for the first 4 years, a little bit more than 7 members on average. That comes to a total of 3/5 of a person. 3/5 of a person. It's such a historically resonant fraction to think of 3/5 of a person, going back to the Missouri Compromise. And it wasn't until last year in which the city of Asheville finally crested that 3/5 of one black person every year on its city council. So for those who are going to be auditing and being participating in the Reparations Commission, I just want that information to be put out there and considered, a full audit and history of how our government has changed over time, including this body, because all of the ordinances which may have caused harm to the black community would have been supported by these very bodies. So the audit really needs to go to these bodies. I don't know what the history of the Buncombe County Commissioners is when it comes to diversity, but I've got to assume that it's a lot worse than the city of Asheville. So to whatever degree anybody can have any influence on that sort of, research or looking into those things, that's what I've been spending years bothering Esther. She's watching, hello, and thanks. And it was a pleasure to meet the county manager who complimented me on my fabulous hair. And maybe I'll come back more for that. So, thank you.
All right. Next is Gary Thompson.
I'd just like to review the progress since this Pinner's Cove project has been started. At the start, the roads are all winding, curving, blind curve roads, narrow, eroding roads, no shoulder, and the shoulder or the edge of the road is eroding. Traffic, heavy traffic. Look at Hendersonville Road and Sweeten Creek Road, major approach roads. Sweeten Creek has been threatened to be widened for years now, and I heard that it's about 10 years in the future yet. And the backup at the Mills Gap intersection is huge. The environment, heavy rains have proven that the area floods, and the weight-limited bridge on Pinner's Cove is threatened. Since then, what have the trends been? The roads have visibly deteriorated. They're now crumbling in the middle of some of the lanes as the roadbed erodes under it. So they're not in good condition. They're getting worse. The environment, heavy rains have proven what happens there. If this project is approved, the roads, Pinner's Cove and School Road, the main approach roads, will be destroyed. I have no doubt in my mind of that. Traffic, with people crossing the center line on blind curves, with increase in traffic this development will bring, is dangerous indeed. Probably will result in head-on collisions with possible deaths. And the environment, heavy rains have shown just what that can do. And building a sewage pipeline over the ridge, well, the only thing I can think of is Murphy's Law exists. That's just so threatening. It's interesting that they're using a conservation easement to defend what they're trying to do. It's like saying, on this hand, I guarantee I won't destroy the environment, while they, on the other hand, threaten the entire area by trying to destroy, or resulting in destruction of the environment by the runoff because of the hard surface creation. And there's so many things that this project affects negatively. It's like it's just waiting for a fuse to be lit or a trigger to be pulled. And quite frankly, it looks to me like this project is that trigger or that fuse. Please don't light it.
Tifa Halleck?
Good evening. I am a resident of Ballantree, so I'm here to speak about Pinner's Cove. I have learned that the plan is to pump the sewage up and over the ridge line into our neighborhood's septic system. And I would like all of you to know that I have never lived anywhere else in my life where I lose water so frequently. We lose water 4 to 5 times a year. We just have outages. They're for various reasons. It is clear to me that our underground utility system is stressed. It was installed in the 1970s. It was designed as a dead-end system that ends on the ridgeline, not to be continued over a ridgeline. So I'm curious what kind of engineering reports have been reviewed to determine whether or not the sewer system even comes close to the capacity of moving sewage up and over a ridgeline and then into the main, which I'm assuming is along Sweeten Creek Road. What I'm worried most about is that the main vein that runs through our neighborhood will be torn up within a year's time to be replacing that main line that comes down the ridge and then connects to the Sweeten Creek main and to the rest of the city. I have some other notes here. I know that state road improvements are not particularly your job, but I do see it as your responsibility to consider road capacity when approving dense developments such as Pinner's Cove. Unbridled development in general is not what we want Asheville known for. Lots of other places have experienced suburban sprawl, and we make fun of those places. My final request is to preserve our sense of place. Asheville is such a special place, and it seems that development is becoming haphazard here. And I'm not quite sure what the gain in that, what is that about, the stamps of approval. Engineering report, I'd love to see it. Is that something you all can publish for Ballantree's sewer system? Thank you.
Right, we don't typically just get in the Q&A session during public comment, but we've got your name. Maybe one of the staff can follow up with you about if there is an engineering report, I assume it would be a public engineering report. So we'll see if the staff can follow up with you, Tifa. Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Carolyn Ward.
Thank you, and thank you for your service, right? It's a hard job, and public servants are important, and government is not some external thing, so I just want to thank you for everything you do. I'm Carolyn Ward. I'm the CEO of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. We're the nonprofit partner that helps fund projects and programs along the whole length of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And I'm sure, as many of you know, the Blue Ridge Parkway is an economic engine. It generates $1.7 billion of economic income to our local mountain towns. It is the most visited national park unit in the entire country, more visitors than Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon combined. And we feel that in our mountain towns, especially here in Asheville. And so I'm here to comment about the comprehensive 2043 plan. There's a lot of elements about it that are amazing. Thank you for the sort of forward-thinking vision. If all these people are coming, we got to put them somewhere. I understand that. And you talked about focus on conservation as one of your 5 vision themes. Talked specifically about land protection, viewshed protection, et cetera, so thank you for that. I do have some concerns about some of the elements of the plan, even though there's a photo caption on page 60 that states communities near the Blue Ridge Parkway are designated as a rural community. The plan actually invites fairly significant development along the Blue Ridge Parkway corridor. There's 3 small areas that are actually classified as rural community. That's on the maps on page 53 and 61. But the vast majority of the lands along the Parkway corridor are either classified as complete community, which allows for the development of up to 30 units per acre. One of them on the interchange of I-74, the one that runs right under toward Reynolds, is actually classified as mixed-use area 1, which allows for commercial and manufacturing and industrial use. It's in the viewshed. Another one at the Interstate 26 in French Broad River is classified as mixed-use area 2, which allows for large-scale industrial use. I will tell you that there are certain sections of the Blue Ridge Parkway that have this kind of viewshed impact, and the use is not anywhere like it is in the Asheville area. There was a study done recently that indicated 96% of the visitors that come to the Parkway come for the views. There was a subsequent follow-up study that indicated 50% of those visitors will stop coming if we damage the viewshed. And we can see evidence of that in other communities, especially in the Virginia corridor where the viewshed has not been protected. So I encourage you to just please look at some of those details. It does say they want it to be maintained rural, but there are maps that indicate that that is not the case. Thank you. And I have a neighbor's guide. You talk about development along the Parkway and wanting to do viewshed protection. We've done that, so I can leave a copy for everybody.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. All right, and the last person that signed up is Andy Flavel.
Hi. I'm here to address the Pinners Cove situation. It seems to me that the developer has come back with not Plan B, but Plan A modified. And he still wants to have the high-density zoning reclassification that he's been seeking the first time around. What I want to talk to you about tonight is the issues of balance and fair play. Now, certainly it would please a developer to be able to build a much higher number of housing units than current law allows. But as a resident of Pinners Cove, I need to point out what all of you already know, that if the developer is allowed to build his larger number of housing units, whether they're individual homes or townhouses, a raft of serious problems is going to be unleashed on the residents. That's been well established. So what would be a fair, balanced decision? What would it look like? I'll get to that in a minute, but it certainly wouldn't be a fair and balanced decision to allow a developer to get what he wants while we local residents in effect have to subsidize the developer's profit margin through the creation and subsequent degradation of the existing infrastructure and lifestyle we enjoy. And I might add, an infrastructure that's already under serious strain. So of course the answer is no. Allowing him a high density classification wouldn't be fair and it would not be balanced. I propose to you a compromise position. Now, we all know in a compromise, no one gets everything they want. Obviously, a lot of the public would not like any development, but the developer is legally entitled to it. He's grandfathered. There are zoning codes that allow him to build. So what I would suggest is that no rezoning classification be granted, because while that would guarantee his goal, it would also guarantee our hardship. Refusing the developer's rezoning request would be a fair compromise, one where Pinners Cove residents would have to accept a measure of change they definitely don't want, and also one where the developer would be able to build, but just not the highest numbers he'd much prefer. So in summary, I believe that if such a decision were handed down by this board, it would, one, apply the law fairly to all as it should. I cannot stress that enough. I know in your heart of hearts you all know that this is a high principle and an American ideal. Number two, it would also represent the definition of a fair compromise. Number three, it would not take away the developer's hardship. It would only transfer hardship to the Pinners Cove residents if that were to happen and the developer had his way and built under a rezoning classification that this board gave him. This compromise position would represent the essence of fairness and some measure of balance, and only you are able to create it through your coming decision on this rezoning request. I ask you, be fair, apply the law equally. Do not create hardship for the many so the one will have his alleviated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the board during the public comment period? All right, thank you, and we appreciate everyone who took time to come out this evening and share your perspective on these issues. All right, the next item under good news is the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, Government Finance Officers Association, and John Hudson, County Budget Director, will explain this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Continuing a streak of 27 consecutive years, Buncombe County has won the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association for their fiscal year 23 adopted budget. The presentation is available on our website. This year's document as any year's, requires quite a bit of work. This year's document is 457 pages. And this is really an award that's really about the entire county at large. We work with departments throughout many months to gather information about how to provide resources. We work with our school partners, and really it's about putting together a budget that communicates effectively what we're trying to do, as well as provides all the resources necessary. And I could not do this job without my department. I have 4 budget analysts, of which one of them is here tonight to accept the award on our behalf, and that is Heather Holsey. I promised her she doesn't have to say anything if she doesn't want to. And so I just wanted to share this good news with you.
All right, congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, next up under presentations is a proclamation on Black Legacy Month, and Commissioner Martin Moore will present the proclamation. And Mylan Patton is here with us as well for this item. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to let Mylan start first, if you like.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll be brief. We have Joy Wilson here from the Equity and Inclusion Work Group, and we have Dr. Orlean Simmons, a legend here in Asheville and Buncombe County. Wanted to thank you, the Commissioners, for your continued commitment to racial equity, Black history and Black legacy, the staff for your execution of the vision, and Dr. Simmons for being here and being a living legend, and from Mars Hill to here in Buncombe County, your courage and conviction to stand on the wall and break through barriers and walk through doors. So we're grateful to be here, and we're grateful to accept this Black Legacy Award. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and read it, and then we can go ahead and present it, and here's from Dr. Simmons.
Sounds great.
Whereas Buncombe County is committed to creating an inclusive community that celebrates diversity and ensures all residents have equitable opportunities to lead healthy, peaceful, safe, and sustainable lives. And whereas in honoring the cultures, traditions, and accomplishments of Black and African Americans that have shaped our country, we also acknowledge our nation's history of colonialism that has inflicted slavery, discrimination, deprivation, violence, and genocide upon Black people. And whereas in 1926, Carter G. Woodson and Minister Jesse E. Moreland laid the foundation for Black History Month because of the achievements of Black Americans were all but erased from national history and underrepresented in important policy decisions. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford made Black History Month a national observance. Whereas during the Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by Black Americans like Nina Simone, Roberta Flack, E.W. Pearson, and Isaac Dixon to Buncombe County's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas we honor the memory of the millions of enslaved Africans who died during the transatlantic slave trade. And whereas by transitioning from looking back on history and celebrating the legacy of our Black and African American community members, we create a culture of mutual respect. Whereas the legacy of Black leadership has long been a bedrock of Buncombe County, including at Stevens Lee High School, the Castle on the Hill that served 900 Black students, where Elnora M. Foster was a member of the faculty and was known as the first African American woman in Asheville to receive a master's degree. Whereas we call our community's attention to the continued need to battle racism and to build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals through resolutions like the Declaration of Racism as a Public Health and Safety Crisis and the implementation of our Racial Equity Action Plan. And whereas Buncombe County joins the City of Asheville in our commitment to reparations, and whereas the Buncombe County Libraries, including the Buncombe County Special Collections, offer curated content for all ages about Black legacy, not just in February, but year-round. And whereas we seek to repair the trauma of past oppression and the broken trust by celebrating the legacy of Black cultures and voices striving together to build a future of shared hope and promise for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this, the 7th day of February 2023, the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim February 2023 as Black Legacy Month, a time to celebrate the rich and diverse cultures of Black and African American people, to raise the awareness about our shared history, to recognize that truth must come before reconciliation, and to acknowledge the important contributions that Black and African American people have made to our community and our nation.
To members of the Buncombe County Commission, it is an honor for me as president and founder of the Martin Luther King Association to accept this Black Legacy Month proclamation. The Martin Luther King Association board members, Vanessa Funderburg, Dr. Michael Dempsey, Dr. Elizabeth Colton, Jennifer Nielsen, Dr. Jonathan McCoy, and Sarah Thornburg are joining me here today. I echo from the wordings of this proclamation that's so beautifully crafted, the whereas, by transitioning from looking back on history and celebrating the legacy of our Black and African American community members, we create a culture of mutual respect. To me, it's about celebrating and also a powerful reminder that Black history is American history, that Black culture is American culture, and stories are essential to the ongoing story of America, our faults, our struggles, our progress, our aspirations and journeys. Thank you so much to the Commission for your support of our association down through the years. And thank you for declaring Black Legacy Month in Buncombe County.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much. And And thank you for your work this year and for years and years in our community on the organization of the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Prayer Breakfast. It was another wonderful event this year. It was great to see everyone back in person together for this important community event. And although it seems like it's always the most interesting weather on the mornings of these breakfasts, and it was snowing this year. It was just a really wonderful event, and really, I think one of the best that we've had. So thank you for your work on it and for everyone's work on it, and the continuing vitality and contribution that it is to our community. Thank you. All right. Commissioners, we do not have any public hearings this evening. Ms. Pender, do you have any items under the county manager's report?
I do have a quick update, sir. This past month, I used my discretion to give a bonus to staff, and I just want to share that. And our HR Director, Sharon Burke, is here to inform you of what I have done.
Okay, great.
Good evening. Just waiting for the presentation. So about 3 years ago, I want to give you some information. Oh, wait a second. There we go. That we put together a team, and we call it MEET, which is Meaningful, Engaging, Equity Together. And this group is created of 9 Buncombe County staff. And they've spent more than 20 months putting this together. It's been incredible, the effort that these individuals have spent, and most of it was on their own time. So they started off putting together virtual coffee chats, and that was back when COVID first hit, when we couldn't get together. And then when we could get together, these folks worked. They went to training after hours, sometimes up until 9:30, weekend work, and they created a 4-part class. This has been delivered in 36 modules between April of 2021 and November of 2022. And of that, 250 employees have participated in at least one or more of those modules. So this is just the ordinance that gives County Manager Pender the right to make that award. And so 5 of the 9 employees that are part of this committee, they will be awarded the $1,000. And the reason why those others is they're either working in human resources or they're working where their job description actually describes equity. And I want to introduce those members to you. And we have some of them with us. So y'all want to come up? So I'm going to do it in the alpha order that I have. And Jennifer Avalos, and Sarah Grancy, Tiffany Ignacio, Joey Robinson, Casey Swing, Richard Bell, Leonard Jones, Hector Salgado, and Andy Zoller. Thank you for the work you guys did. It was and is so amazing. And those that are receiving the bonuses for transparency will be Andy, Jennifer, Leonard, Sarah, and Tiffany. Just want to thank you. Thank you for your support. And thank these guys, because the work they do is just, it's amazing. If you ever had an opportunity to go to the class, and there's classes are coming up, so if you'd like to go to one of those classes, I'll make sure that you have an invitation.
All right, well, thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you so much for coming to share this information this evening, and for sharing the great work of all the members of the team. We appreciate all of you. We know that this is not a lot of money, but we hope it is in some small way that the county can say thank you for your great work for all the people of Buncombe County. So thank you all. Great job.
That's all I have on my report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no items under old business. The first item under new business is a resolution declaring the county's intent to reimburse itself for capital expenditures incurred with various county and school capital projects, affordable housing projects, and open space projects. And Mason Scott is here to present this item. Thank you.
Good evening. We have actually grouped multiple resolutions together, hopefully to simplify your vote when we get to that point. Reimbursement resolutions are a standard practice for us as a county, but I have not presented them to you before, and I think there's been some transition on the board, so I want to start with an overview as an introduction or a reminder. So again, these are a standard practice. Reimbursement resolutions are required by the IRS when we go through the process of cash funding projects upfront and then reimbursing them later through the issuance of debt. Benefits here are through the initial cash funding of projects, we have actual costs, so we can be very precise in the actual debt that we issue when we get to that point. We're only taking out the money that we need. This saves us money, and it also supports the state local government commission's review of our debt application when we get to the debt financing portion of the conversation. The reimbursement resolutions themselves are a formal notice to the IRS that we're going through this process of cash funding and reimbursement. And the benefits there are, once we make notice, then we can issue those bonds to reimburse ourselves our operating cash. And this also allows us to issue tax-exempt bonds, which are generally more attractive to our investors than the taxable bonds, and again, save us money in the way of better interest rates. More specific notes about the resolutions that we would bring to you all. They include not to exceed amounts. So these are always going to be based on the projects that we generally anticipate completing within a year or so of when you all adopt these resolutions. But the resolutions cover expenditures as far back as 60 days prior to when you initially adopt the resolution, and as far forward as 3 years from the original expenditure. We, as a county, generally present these resolutions to you all around the same time as our annual budget ordinance. We are catching our cycle up to the winter-fall GO bond authorization, so we're a little off cycle, but we would expect to put this on more of a fiscal schedule moving forward. So that's kind of just a general overview, reminder, introduction to reimbursement resolutions. Are there any questions in general before we talk about specific amounts? Okay. So the specific numbers that you have in front of you, 3 distinct resolutions. One is for $47 million for school and county projects. That amount represents about $30 million in city and county school projects that were approved as a part of the most recent School Capital Fund Commission cycle, and then about $15 million in county projects that we expect to kick off this year. Then you'll see 2 GO bond-related reimbursement resolutions, one for the amount of $16 million related to affordable housing projects, and one for about $5.6 million in open space and greenway-related projects. The county and school reimbursement resolution will take us through our standard kind of financing, limited obligation bond financing series, and then the 2 GO bond-related projects will be reimbursed through those GO bond authorizations at the appropriate time. Any questions? The process.
I don't think so.
So I will defer to how we should take the vote. It is 3 separate resolutions. I think you might be able to bundle them.
Let's do three votes.
I think the way Mason described it, you can do one resolution or one motion to approve the resolutions declaring the county's intent to reimburse itself for capital expenditures incurred with various county and school capital projects, affordable house projects, and open space projects.
Great. All right, we have a motion and second to approve the 3 resolutions as outlined in the staff report. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Mason.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is consideration of a resolution authorizing additional staff work to develop a scope of work for an official audit to ensure compliance with applicable regulations, statutes, and local requirements to cease harm impacting the African-American community. And Assistant County Manager D.K. Wesley is here to present this item.
Good evening, Chair Newman and Commissioners. Make sure this is working. It's always an honor to be with you all tonight and to share an overview of and submit for your consideration the second of 2 immediate recommendations from the Community Reparations Commission and share a recap of that recommendation, the major components of the resolution that you have in your materials, give you an update on the response plan, proposed response plan, and then also open it up to discussion and request for action. Again, this is the second and final immediate recommendation brought forward from the Reparations Commission since it first convened in April of 2022. The first recommendation was the inclusion of reparations funding in the base budget. This body approved as requested and also included a 2% annual increase. This particular recommendation has come to fruition as the commission has continued its work and began to identify specific harms that they believe local government has caused African Americans in Buncombe County. As that work continues, the commission decided that it was important to first act and ask for the stop with assurances of any current harms being inflicted by the City of Asheville and Buncombe County organizations. This includes three major components. One, recommended that the county and city provide assurance and take effective measures to end ongoing and current harms to African Americans due to intentional and unintentional policies, programs, practices, and procedures. Second, called for the county and the city to conduct an audit to ensure compliance with federal and state laws, regulatory bodies, codes of conduct, court orders, and consent decrees. This audit will demonstrate that the cessation of harm has occurred and prevent any further harms or threats to African Americans from these governmental institutions. Recommended, the third and final, is recommended that the county and city promote and enforce codes of conduct and ethical norms and take ongoing measures to foster confidence building between government and African Americans, truth-seeking mechanisms and processes, and then timely accountability of disposition of these recommendations. In response to those recommendations, included in your meeting materials is a resolution that defines those commitments and assurances and authorizes the county manager to work with the City of Asheville and the Community Reparations Commission to develop an audit scope and solicitation to select a firm to conduct the recommended audit. It further directs the review and prioritization of any findings to remediate the perpetuation of further harm. On January 17th, at your briefing, we reviewed this proposed response plan, and we followed it since then. On January 24th, the City Council approved the same resolution unanimously, and that brings us to this evening for this board recommended action. If approved, we will work with the Reparations Commission and the City of Asheville to develop that scope and solicitation and work to advertise and seek professional services to complete the audit. As a part of that solicitation, we're going to require that those proposers provide us with the methodology and also a proposed timeline for completion. For that reason, we're estimating that in hopes to complete that audit by the end of the summer, but we won't know for certain until we understand the level of effort that is required for completion. We will continue to update the Reparations Commission, this board, and the City Council frequently along the way. This is just a description of some of the key components in the process, but mostly for the public's reference as they follow along with this important effort. So I'll pass it back to you and ask that you, through the adoption of this resolution, make the requested commitments and authorize the county manager to follow the response plan and develop a scope of work for an official audit in response to the community reparations immediate recommendation to cease harm impacting the African American community.
Okay, thanks, DK. Commissioners, questions or discussion?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say, or further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next is a consideration of a resolution approving the Buncombe County Commissioners' legislative agenda for 2023.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This evening, no slides, just one document. As you're aware, Commissioners had a discussion at your November 30th, 2022 briefing to discuss 2023 legislative agenda. Additionally, on January 30th of 2023, You hosted a legislative event that was open to the public to once again discuss the legislative agenda. For members of the public that are unfamiliar, we're presenting the legislative agenda on the screen, and I'll take a moment just to read through the items quickly. For the 2023 legislative agenda, the appropriation priorities, first, seek state funding for state employees, including K-12 and community college education and related capital needs. Seek additional state funding and/or direct earmarks for water quality, flood resiliency, and stormwater mitigation projects in the French Rod River Basin. Seek and advocate for additional state funding to address the innovation waiver slots waiting list for IDD individuals in the Buncombe community. Seek state funding resources for repairs and improvements to McCormick Field. Under policy priorities, there are 5. Seek additional state funding support for early childhood education and pre-K programs, including simplifying or modifying the subsidy formula for Buncombe County. Oppose any proposals that would limit local government ability to regulate short-term rentals or online marketplaces. Seek authorization of a General Assembly study for property tax relief and related exemptions for permanent residents of the state of North Carolina. Continue to evaluate methods to modernize North Carolina house occupancy tax guidelines to meet the evolving visitation and infrastructure needs of Buncombe County. And finally, seek additional state investment in broadband funding, including the reallocation of unspent state or federal funds to the GREAT Grant program, as well as additional flexibility for local government investment in broadband infrastructure. Additionally, on your agenda this evening, there is a resolution that if you are able to vote and approve, that would approve your 2023 legislation. It includes the language that's on the screen. At this point, I would turn it over to y'all for any questions, comments, or discussion.
Thanks, Tim. Commissioners, any questions, discussion, or motion?
Move to approve the 2023 legislative agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Tim.
Thank y'all.
And thanks to everyone who helped to put together the legislative meetings with our delegation and from Buncombe County and some of the legislators from neighboring counties as well. I thought it was a really good discussion, and so we really appreciate that. And we know what happens in Raleigh can affect us here in Western North Carolina, so we want to be more engaged. And so thanks for all your great work on that. All right. Last item under new business is a budget amendment for Special Projects Fund, Community Reparations. John Hudson. Oops, I'm sorry. Thank you. Resolution in support of Buncombe County Board of Education resolution supporting local control of school calendars. We discussed this at the briefing meeting, and so this is a resolution expressing our support to provide local school boards with greater flexibility in establishing their calendar. All the schools across the state would still have the same number of total hours in classroom instructions, but this would provide greater flexibility instead of a one-size-fits-all calendar being imposed from Raleigh. So I'll make a motion to approve this resolution that was requested of us from our school board.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so let's add that to the legislative agenda now. One amendment right away. Okay, now we come to a budget amendment for Special Projects Fund, Community Reparations. John Hudson will present this item.
Thank you. These budget ordinances transfer the budgeted $2 million fiscal year 23 allocation for community reparations to the multi-year Special Projects Fund in order to keep any unused funds from reverting to fund balance at year end. Future year allocations will be budgeted in this fund.
Is there a motion to approve the budget amendment?
Motion to. Yeah. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, we have some board appointments. First, the Parks, Greenways, and Recreation Advisory Committee. There are 6 reappointments and 1 appointment. The 6 reappointments are the existing members, and the recommendation is to appoint Kevin Conracode, if I'm pronouncing his name, So I'll make a motion to appoint Carol Peterson, reappoint Carol Peterson, Ann Babcock, Derek Torno, Lena Richards, Stuart Coles, Ally Howell, and to appoint Kevin Conrad-Code. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, on the Economic Development Coalition of Asheville-Buncombe County, there is one appointment that's recommended from the, or representing the Chamber of Commerce.
Make a motion to appoint Sabrina Rockoff.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we interviewed applicants for the Independent Water Review Board earlier today. We appreciate everyone who applied to serve on this temporary committee that's looking at the water outages that occurred and what we can do better in the future in regards to the city's water system and planning for such events. So first, we need to appoint one person representing emergency service background.
I move to appoint Dennis Fagnett.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then there's one person to be appointed representing residential ratepayers' perspective and customers' perspective, basically. We had two applicants. I'll start over on Amanda's side. Why don't we just each go down and identify which of the applicants you would appoint?
Kim Murphy.
Kim Murphy. Kim Murphy as well.
Kim Murphy.
Kim Murphy.
Okay. All right, Kim Murphy is appointed. We also appreciate Michael Jones applying, another great applicant. So we thank everyone who stepped forward to serve, but Kim Murphy will get the appointment. All right, we need to discuss a few other positions. Lamar, you mentioned earlier today that we need to review the applicants for the Bond Advisory Board. And if you emailed those around, I didn't have a chance to read them this afternoon, so we just got them. But we need to basically do interviews for some of those positions at before our next meeting, right, for the Bond Advisory Board or Oversight Board. So it seems like we should go ahead and just interview everyone who's applied for that board. And if we feel like we want to, based on the interviews, we might want to take additional time, keep it open, but we could go ahead and at least appoint some, if not all, the positions. So is everyone agreeable to going ahead and interviewing all the candidates who've applied so far? Great. So we'll do that on the third Tuesday of the month.
Yes. Currently, we have 7 individuals that have applied, and we did send out that information with those applications to you earlier today. Is there a particular time that we want to start those interviews?
I think just give us enough time so we can get done in order to be ready for our 3 p.m. briefing meeting. So 2 o'clock or a little before 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Something like that.
Did you have a chance to look at the Land of Sky applications that were sent as well? Because we need to make an appointment there as well, so.
We did not. Could we,
That would, if we were considering making that appointment at the next meeting, and we did interviews, that would determine what time we would start to do those 7 for the general obligation bonds as well as the Land of Sky. So just wanted to see if that is something that you want to do. Y'all can take time to look at it and decide if you want to interview.
I would just make a suggestion here, open to ideas, but what if we discuss that further at the next meeting and maybe identify who we want to interview for that? Maybe we will end up deciding to interview everyone, or maybe it'll be a shorter list, but would that be, we just only have one appointment. So is there a time sensitivity on that, or could we take that up at the next meeting and decide how many we want to interview?
Yeah, I think we could take that up at the next meeting.
Let's plan on that. So everyone, let's review the applicants again. And actually, I've got one other thought. Here's one other thought. We kind of do this kind of like we did the last one, so as not to delay. What if we all look at the applicants, and then let's email Lamar by Friday let them know who you want to interview. And anybody who gets suggested for an interview, we'll interview, and that's who we'll interview for Land of Sky, right? So that way we don't wait 2 weeks. Let's just review the list, and let's just send Lamar, and if everybody gets nominated to be interviewed, we'll interview them all. If it's just a handful of them, that's fine too, but how about that as a process, so we don't wait 2 more weeks?
That's perfect. Is there a time that we need to, I guess, start by? Can anybody start at 12 o'clock? I know Commissioner Wells isn't here, but I could definitely communicate with her.
Well, we're gonna have the, how many bond people again?
It's 7.
7. And then, I think it just depends on how many Land of Sky people we have. If it's just, a couple or 3, then we probably won't need that much time. But if we interview everyone, then yeah, we would need to start. I mean, we need like 10 minutes for every interview, so just sort of have to work backwards from
All
that.
right, so if we were to start at noon, every commissioner would be able to make it, or, okay. All right.
Yeah. All right, sounds like a plan. And yeah, everyone just make a note. If you got a suggestion on interviews, send it in by Friday. Great. Any other board and commission items, Lamar?
A quick question, have the applications closed on the bond?
Kept them open. They have continuously been open. We haven't stopped accepting any application. As of today, that was the number of applicants that we had.
Okay.
Okay, great,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. And when will it officially close?
We hadn't decided, but I guess we would close it by probably this Friday to at least.
Have time to schedule interviews?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so if anybody's interested in serving on this oversight committee for the $70 million of bond funding that the voters have approved, please send in your application to the county clerk for consideration. And so there's a small window open, but it's about to close. So anybody who's interested, if you know anybody, encourage them to go ahead and send in their application. All right, commissioners, we got a couple of announcements.
Commissioner, before you go to announcements, I forgot, there's a person in the room I want you to recognize. We can introduce her later, but we're talking about bonds, and she is our first hire of a bond project manager.
All right.
So Jill, I'm putting you on the spot. Jill Carter, she's our open space manager.
Okay, Jill, welcome. Glad to have you on board. Okay, on February 21st at 3 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. On February 21st at 5 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. Is there a motion to?
You want to make the trip to Raleigh? Just mention that we have.
Oh, yeah. A bunch of us are going to Raleigh, along with a bunch of our friends from the Asheville City Council and city staff. So we are departing on, and who all is able to go? So I'm going, and Martin and Jasmine are going, and Commissioner Terry Wells is going. A bunch of folks from the staff are coming, and then I think most of the members of the Asheville City Council and many of their public staff are also going. So we're taking a trip to, and the chair of HIAC is also going. So we're traveling to Raleigh, not to visit the state capitol, but to visit, is it called the Healing Place, or does it have an updated name? No, it's still called the Healing Place. So it's a very innovative facility, well-regarded, that provides a variety of services and facilities to address homelessness concerns in Raleigh. And so members of the county and the city are traveling there together to do a site visit and meet with their staff and learn more about what they're doing to bring home any successful models that we might want to consider for our community. So we're traveling on Sunday for the site visit on Monday, and then traveling back Monday afternoon. So, yeah. And that is actually, because there's a majority of the elected officials going, it's actually an open public meeting of the elected officials too. Right.
Continuous meeting.
Going down I-40 and back. So anyway, thanks to everyone who helped pull that together. We're looking forward to it. It's all right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we're adjourned.